Kini ang simbianan sa RPN Radio Philippines Network DXKS DXKS 1080 ang inyong Radio Ronda 5,000 watts nagsimbiya sa ikatulong andana sa UFCO Lim Building, Borromeo Street, Dakbayan sa Surigao. RPN Radio Philippines Network DXKS 1080 ang inyong Radio Ronda.
Anywhere in Metro Manila and to select municipalities in Cavite and Rizal. Same-day delivery is available Mondays to Saturdays if you place your order before 12 noon. Spend more time doing the things you love. Just Hub It Delivered. Visit us now at thehub.sanmiguel.com.ph. Your home made better with San Miguel.
Residente ay stranded pa rin.
Lahat halos ng mga bahay dito ay sira.
Lampas tao na yung tubig.
Overnight thinking, binantayan din natin ang sitwasyon.
A portion of the RPN bridge here in the Botas was destroyed.
Nakikita ko sa likod ko ngayon, malakas na yung agos ng Panano River.
Talagang nagbuhos ng napakatinding ulan.
Ang resulta, lagpas taong taas ng baha.
Kagabi takot na po kami. Ilang minuto lang po na ang taas na po ng tubig.
Merong mga outsiders na nananamantala.
Wala pa nga rin daw tumutulong sa kanila.
Kahit yung mga bahay dito sa paligid, lubog na sa baha.
This is News Night, where we go above and beyond the headlines. I'm Pia Ontiveros. Tonight on the program, while preparations for the canvassing of votes in the presidential and vice presidential races are in full swing, talks about who will be the leaders in the next Senate are also underway. The next House leadership also detailing a possible priority measure. With the onset of the rainy season, how prepared are local governments here in Metro Manila for the dangers of flooding? And the UAAP drummers are calling for their inclusion in the much-awaited cheer dance competition happening this weekend. A day after the Commission on Elections formally proclaimed the 12 winning senators, the question has cropped up: who will be the next Senate President and leaders of the upper chamber? Amer Santos reports.
Senate Majority Leader Mig Zubiri confirms he's in the running for Senate President. At the sidelines of the proclamation of new senators on Wednesday, Zubiri said a recently formed bloc wants him as leader, but they don't have the numbers yet. They need at least 13 votes. Zubiri believes he's ready for the job, having been majority leader thrice, who mastered the Senate rules with the ability to build consensus. But he says it's anyone's game for now.
It could be Senator Cheese, it could be Senator Sherwin, it could be Senator Villar. At the end of the day, kami lahat ay mag-uusap. And we will look at the good of this institution. Everyone is capable. Even Robin Padilla, why not? Eventually, yung lahat ng grupo ng tumatakbo will be part of the supermajority. So, we'll all be together.
Senator Sherwin Gatchalian has publicly declared his interest in the Senate leadership. Senator Cynthia Villar said it's too early to talk about it. No word yet from Senator-elect Cheese Escudero. And returning Senator Alan Peter Cayetano believes none of them has the numbers yet.
If I'm correct, none of them have the 13 or more right now. And pare-pareho sagot ko sa kanila, I'd like to remain independent. So I'm actually not engaging.
Re-electionist Joel Villanueva defers any decision, remaining open to join the minority. First-time lawmaker Raffy Tulfo has not made up his mind on who to support, but he is determined to be part of the majority.
May mga nagkipag-usap na sa akin and they were inviting me to join their group para sa Senate presidency.
Senator Risa Ontiveros, the lone opposition candidate in the Magic 12, is now laying the groundwork for the minority. She says exploratory talks are ongoing and she's willing to give way to Senator Coco Pimentel if he wants to be minority leader.
Mahalaga sa akin gaano man ka laki o kaliit ang minorya, ang importante ay totoo siyang minorya, epektibo siya sa checks and balancing at saka sa fiscalizing. And at the same time, tulad ng minorya namin ngayon ay kaya naming makipagtrabaho sa majority, sa mga common advocacies namin.
Amor Santos, CNN Philippines.
The next Congress will convene in over 2 months from now, but this early, the incoming House of Representatives says it will work to pass another stimulus package. Majority Leader Martin Romualdez, who's poised to become the next speaker, says the bill will help affected businesses to recover from the COVID-19 pandemic and to eventually revive the economy. Under the Duterte administration, Congress was able to pass 2 stimulus packages known as the Bayanihan to Heal as One and the Bayanihan to Recover as One.
We've been approached by some folks, gawin mo lang imbis na bayanihan na lang, gawin mo BBM, Bayan Bangon Muli na bill, a stimulus package, no, that will allow the incoming president to harness the resources available to him during this closing period of 2022 and address the measures that are needed for the pandemic, hopefully endemic stage of this COVID issue. And of course, to harness whatever remaining resources to stimulate the economy and to reinvigorate it for the better of all.
Romualdez is the first cousin of presumptive President Bongbong Marcos. When asked about a possible conflict of interest, Romualdez stressed the speakership is a position elected by fellow congressmen. Well, COMELEC looking to proclaim winning party list groups next week, but which of them are getting the most seats in the House of Representatives? Paolo Barcelon tells us more live from the COMELEC Command Center in Pasay. Paolo, how does the party list race work again?
Well, Pia, party lists that attain at least 2% of the total votes cast for the party list elections will get one House seat. Based on the latest canvass report, that is report number 7 released by the COMELEC, only 6 party lists so far have reached or went over the 2% mark required by law. These are ACT CIS, One Rider, Tingog, 4-Piece, Ako Bicol, and Sagip. This means these groups now have one guaranteed seat in the lower house. Due to a 2009 Supreme Court ruling, there are 2 more stages needed to determine which party lists will gain more seats. The second stage involves determining which of these party lists with guaranteed seats will get 1 or 2 additional seats. Once the top-ranking party list reaches a total of 6% or more, it gets 3 seats in Congress. The third and final process will involve selecting which party lists will be able to fill the 20% seat quota mandated by the Constitution, even if they don't reach the 2% mark. The COMELEC assures all 63 party list seats will be filled up. The COMELEC Unbanked decided to wait for votes from Lanao del Sur before proclaiming the winners. The target date, May 25.
Ang kino-consider po natin sa Lanao del Sur ay 685,643 pa. That's the reason why we had postponed and rescheduled kasi nga po it's 685,000.
The COMELEC is optimistic to reach its target proclamation date, hoping that the 1,991 votes from Shanghai, China will no longer affect the party list proclamation. Now, Pia, only 2 representatives from winning party lists will be allowed at the proclamation. The venue will be determined by the Commission on Bank. Back to you, Pia.
Paolo, how is the poll body working now on getting candidates to file their statement of campaign expenditures?
Well, PIA COMELEC spokesperson Rex Laudianco earlier reminded candidates, including those who withdrew during the campaign period, to file the SOSE form or their statement of contributions and expenditures by June 8. That is 30 days after the election. This is to check whether or not they followed campaign finance laws. Presidential and vice presidential candidates are allowed to spend 10 pesos per voter. Candidates with a political party are allowed to spend 3 pesos per voter, while their parties can spend 5 pesos per voter. Independent candidates, meanwhile, are allowed to spend 5 pesos per voter. So what does this mean? For national candidates with over 65.7 million registered voters, around 657 million pesos may be spent by them, with another 328.5 million from those with political parties. Now, the poll body says failure to submit these documents may result in penalties. If you don't submit your SOSE twice in a row, you may be perpetually disqualified from holding office, or you cannot assume office. Assuming you're a winning candidate and you don't submit your SOSE, you can't assume the office that you've been elected in. Pia.
Paolo Barcelon there reporting. There are physical and political boundaries between the 16 cities and one municipality in Metro Manila, but this does not apply to floodwaters. And now the rainy season has just begun. Stanley Gaheta tells us about the government's preparations.
Intermittent rains associated with the southwest monsoon have started to affect Metro Manila and the western sections of the country. Just how ready are the local government units in responding to the dangers of flooding? Marikina, a flood-prone city, started some dredging activity in Marikina River immediately after Typhoon Ulysses hit in 2020.
We're trying to widen and deepen the river, to deepen it para ma-maintain yung 21 meters na depth ng Marikina River, na ideal para ma-maintain yung required velocity ng water current.
The Metro Manila Development Authority is rehabilitating different pumping stations in NCR.
Meron tayong World Bank funded project na nagre-rehab currently ng around 10 pumping stations natin. Pinapalitan na po yung mga luma na mga pumps na 30 plus years na ang edad at medyo mahina yung capacity.
Aside from the billion-peso World Bank-funded project with DPWH Unified Project Management Office, Artes adds, there are other MMDA efforts to help address the flooding problem.
Meron din po tayong waste granulator kung saan yung atin pong basura na nakukuha sa mga pumping stations ay ginigiling natin at isinasama bilang sangkap ng paggawa ng eco brick at hollow blocks.
In 2021, the Commission on Audit reports that MMDA only completed 27 out of 94 flood control projects in 2020.
Hindi po kasi ganun kadali yung implementation niyan. Unang-una, masyadong technical yung mga projects, so yung paggawa pa lang po ng mga technical specifications ay mahirap na.
The Department of Public Works and Highways NCR says about 40 flood control projects are focused in Kamanava area, particularly in Malabon and Navotas. 32 of these are ongoing.
Natapos tayo ng Kamanava dahil nga proactive yung approach natin. Nakuha pang nag-transfer sa mga less flood prone area.
Authorities insist any project to address flooding won't be successful if people will continue throwing their garbage improperly. Stanley Gaheta, CNN Philippines.
When Newsnight returns, will the proclamation of the President and Vice President push through next week? For now, yes, but the High Court wants Bongbong Marcos to comment on a petition to cancel his candidacy. And 5 years later, the struggle continues for Marawi victims displaced by the siege. Just how long will they have to wait for the promised assistance? Stay tuned to CNN Philippines.
Fried chicken? Timplang happy. Tocino? Timplang magandang gising. Inasal? Ito, medyo timplang umuusok. Galit-galitan. Spicy? Timplang hot na hot. With easy-to-cook Magnolia Chicken Timplados. Iba't ibang sarap ng chicken, kaya. Ikaw, anong Magnolia Chicken Timplados mo? Iba't ibang easy chicken sarap.
What makes a nation grow? Every day we see them. The providers, the traders, the movers, the doers, and the go-getters. Each play their part, whether big or small, in creating a better life for all. Whichever your role may be, we're right here for you. We are Land Bank, and we are here to make
Welcome back. Now, a development on a petition to cancel the candidacy of presumptive President Bongbong Marcos filed before the Supreme Court. The court ordering Marcos, the Commission on Elections, the Senate, and the House of Representatives to comment on the petition within 15 days upon receipt of notice. Petitioners, represented by former Supreme Court spokesperson Theodore Te, want the High Court to cancel and declare Marcos's certificate of candidacy void from the beginning. Now, this would completely invalidate Marcos's bid, and all 31.1 million votes he received would be labeled as stray votes. Petitioners are also asking the court to stop Congress from canvassing the votes for the presidential race on May 24 while waiting for the decision. Te welcomes the court's order but hopes the 15-day period will no longer be extended. Now, since the Supreme Court did not issue a stop order for now, the canvassing and proclamation of the president and vice president will push through next week. Preparations are in full swing at the House of Representatives in Quezon City, where the canvassing will take place. Organizers assure the public the process will be transparent, even if access to the session hall is limited. Sierra Arcangel reports.
They are working double time here at the Session Hall of Batasang Pambansa in time for the start of a joint session of the Senate and House of Representatives on May 24th. The newly renovated Session Hall will be the venue for the canvassing of votes for the presidential and vice presidential races. House Secretary General Mark Leandro Mendoza says only 460 persons will be allowed inside the hall. This includes lawmakers from the Senate and House of Representatives who are part of the Joint Canvassing Committee, the lawyers of the candidates, and resource persons. IDs will be given to everyone who enters the House. Access is restricted to areas indicated in the card.
Yung oras na doon ka lang pwede pumasok. Same time din sa ibang mga kaya ng lawyers, mga watchers, ganun din i-implement natin.
On Monday, May 23rd, ballot boxes containing certificates of canvass will be transported to the House from the Senate. The Joint Canvassing Committee will be composed of 7 members each from the House and Senate. They can be substituted by 4 alternate members from each chamber. The House contingent will be led by Speaker Lord Alan J. Velasco. Its members include Majority Leader Martin Romualdez, the cousin of presidential frontrunner Bongbong Marcos, and the man most likely to become the next speaker. The canvassing is scheduled from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. daily, but Mendoza says this could still change. He assures the process will be transparent, with the media allowed to observe the proceedings.
Electronic naman tayo, konti na lang yung manual. So baka mapabilis, baka magdiretso naman hanggang madaling araw siguro kung kakayanin.
The House is coordinating with the police and military for the deployment of additional forces to secure Batasang Pambansa. If the canvassing proceeds smoothly, Marcos and his running mate, Davao City Mayor Sara Duterte, may officially be proclaimed as the new president and vice president respectively by Friday next week. Cian Arcangel, CNN, Philippines.
Millions of Filipinos have been vaccinated against COVID-19 since the rollout began last year. Now, health officials are urging another booster for one of the most vulnerable groups, senior citizens. Lois Calderon tells us why getting the elderly to roll up their sleeves is no easy task, even up to now.
The journey to getting fully vaccinated against COVID-19 can be terrifying for some, especially the elderly. 72-year-old Jose, not his real name, says he has never been sickly until he got his first dose this January.
Nanlalamig ako tsaka nagpapalpitate. Nagkakaroon ako ng headache, yung sakit sa ulo. Naramdaman ko talagang parang katapusan ko na yun eh. Tapos yung ugong sa tenga, hanggang ngayon meron pa rin.
Adding to Jose's apprehension was the belief that a friend's death was linked to the vaccine.
Iyon ang message ko sa government natin. Sana lahat ng ibabaksinate na check upin muna yung health condition. Kasi may mga kakilala na ako, hindi nila chine-check. Ang dami palang kondisyon sa katawan na hindi maganda, komplikasyon lahat, na vaccinate. Ayun, natodas, namatay.
67-year-old Norma Bercasio says she's done with 2 doses of Sinovac last year. No side effects, yes, but Norma feels there's no need to get a booster shot.
Ayoko naman din magpa-booster kung tuusin kasi magkasakit ako. Buo lang desisyon ko. Para sa akin, tama na yun, second dose.
The health department has widened coverage to include the elderly and frontline health workers for a second booster dose. But senior citizens' aversion or hesitancy toward boosters are a blow to government efforts to fortify the Philippines' wall of immunity against COVID-19 mutations, especially now that a new Omicron subvariant is on the rise. Latest data show nearly 69 million of the 110 million Filipino population have been fully vaccinated, but only 13.7 million have received booster shots. Of those boosted, only 2.1 million are senior citizens.
Bakit pinayagan natin ng second booster ang vulnerable population like 60 years old and the healthcare workers, no, dahil doon sa risk ng exposure? Mainly because these are the population na pag nabakunahan mo ng second booster, meron talagang benefit in terms of protection against the severe form of the infection. No?
With the onset of rainy season, health experts advise that flu-like symptoms should not be downplayed and get tested for COVID-19 infection. Lois Calderon, CNN, Philippines.
Agriculture officials are warning the public against a looming global food crisis. DA Secretary William Dar says it could happen sometime this year amid the COVID-19 pandemic, rising fuel prices, and Russia's war on Ukraine. But he notes the country has set plans to address the crisis.
Bawat Pilipino ay kung pwede magtanim tayong lahat, mag-alaga at mangisda. Kung may paraan na dadagdagan natin yung mga production ng ating mga magsasaka at mga mangingisda, ay we have also to do it. That's why tayo ay nagwa-warning at gumagawa din ng paraan para makapaghanda tayo na isagawa natin lahat itong plano.
Dar says the country's food supply is enough for now. The tuna industry also facing a crisis. CNR Arcangel returns and tells us rising fuel costs is hurting tuna fishermen even more, on top of other factors such as the pandemic and climate change.
The sun has not yet risen, but the fish port in General Santos City is already bustling with activity. Fishermen unload tuna from their boats as buyers stand beside long steel tables. In a matter of minutes, the fish are weighed, then graded to check if they are suited for export or local sale. Not all of the boats docked at the port were from Mindanao. Fishermen like Dodong Patino traveled all the way from Antique to sell tuna at a higher price. Dodong says the search for tuna has taken him and his crew months. Their fishing grounds span the entire West Philippine Sea and even the Sulu Sea.
Disdisi na lang kasi yun talagang buhay. Kapag doon ka sa amin, mura talagang isda doon. Kasi walang mga malaki mga broker, yun, mura lang ang tuna. Dito talaga kami kapag season na sa tuna, dito talaga kami.
Tuna production in the country has gone down over the past 2 years. From over 532,000 metric tons in 2019, the volume of tuna caught by fishermen has declined to 462,000 metric tons in 2021. The Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources blames the decline in production to the pandemic and climate change, with erratic weather patterns forcing fishermen to venture further into the ocean to catch tuna. Fishermen say the continued rise in palm prices has greatly affected their livelihood.
Kasi ang gastos nito, mahigit kalahating milyon. Mahirap yan bawiin kapag mura ang tuna.
The Sauk Sargent Federation of Fishing and Allied Industries says it hasn't been business as usual for the tuna industry despite the easing of travel restrictions. The group says producers cannot quickly pass on the higher operating costs to tuna buyers since this could further dampen demand.
We were hopeful na noong parang nag-iis na. But unfortunately, with ito namang Ukraine and nagka-problema naman. So, ang taas-taas ang operational cost.
The government is helping the tuna sector recover by giving fishermen a fuel subsidy worth 3,000 pesos. The Agriculture Department is also stepping up the distribution of devices that will help fishermen catch more fish. Stakeholders, however, say the industry would benefit more from the suspension of the excise tax on fuel. Stakeholders in the tuna industry are hopeful their sector will be given greater priority under the incoming Marcos administration. In the meantime, fishermen like Dodong will have to stay longer at sea just to earn enough to feed their families. Cian Arcangel, CNN, Philippines.
Displaced victims in the Marawi siege may have to wait a little longer before they can get individual land titles because of legal issues flagged by the Commission on Audit. George Quiles tells us the story of one survivor who just wants his own home after waiting for 5 long years.
For Abdul Jalid Madid, the past 5 years without a permanent home was a struggle. After the Marawi siege in 2017, his family had to make do with living in evacuation centers, temporary relocation sites, and even sought refuge in houses of relatives.
Mahirap kasi walang permanenteng trabaho kung hindi ka talaga magsikap kung anong ikakabuhay ng pamilya mo.
After a long wait, there's a place he finally calls home after receiving a permanent house from the UN Habitat. His name is now literally written on this wall. But something bothers Madid. Madid and the rest of the beneficiaries have to wait a bit longer. The Commission on Audit has recently observed some legal issues with the title of the land where the permanent shelters were built.
Hindi rin kami nawawalan talaga ng pag-asa na ito ay masasucess din na in the proper time makukuha namin talaga yung individual titulo ng aming mga bahay.
The Social Housing Finance Corporation, a government-owned and controlled corporation tasked to procure the land, says there are ongoing legal actions being taken to address the issue.
We all sat down and selected the appropriate land for this project. And these are the lands with least legal problems. And when I say the least, meaning it is really feasible for us to cure it and to fix it.
If we will wait for the actual transfer of title, it would mean that all these houses will not be built. So it's like dumb if you do or dumb if you don't. So we have to do it, even though there is no title yet.
As of now, the HSFC has paid only 25% of the total land cost. The seller needs to provide other documentary requirements to be able to receive the rest of the payment. From Marawi City, George Cahiles, CNN Philippines.
Coming up, days before the much-awaited comeback of the UAAP cheering squads, drummers are appealing to the board to let them join the showdown. This is Newsnight here on CNN Philippines.
MX3 dahil ito ay napatunayang may alpha, beta at gamma mangosteen. MX3 capsule helps avoid pain discomfort para iwas sakit. Tested and proven na low sodium, cholesterol-free at fat-free. Dito ako sa tunay, natural at original. MX3.
Mahalagang paalala, ang MX3 capsule ay hindi gamot at hindi dapat gamiting panggamot sa anumang uri ng sakit.
LG OLED Evo, self-lit pixels, delivers deep black and true-to-life colors. Light up your world with the best TV technology in this era. LG OLED Evo.
Welcome back. On to the UAAP with high-flying action set to return in the cheer dance competition. Drummers from all 8 universities call for their inclusion in the event. In a joint statement, they asked the UAAP board to reconsider a decision prohibiting drummers. UAAP President Emmanuel Calanog says the board will talk about the appeal. Some PEP squad members also showed support for their respective drummers.
The primary consideration is really safety and the safety of everyone, no? As compared to the basketball games that technically have only 2 schools playing. These are 8 schools cheering at the same time. There is an appeal, so we will discuss this with the board either tomorrow or Saturday. We'll see.
The Blue Bubble Band is also part of our family, and in order for us to do our best during the competition, I think it would really be good for them to be cheering us on.
In line with health protocols, cheer dance performers are now limited to 15 from 25 people per squad, and routines will be trimmed down from 6 to 3 minutes. Even with the changes, the reigning champs from National University say they're ready for the challenge.
Nung 6 minutes po talaga, doon kami nasanay for how many years yung talaga yung performance namin. Pero siguro blessing na din na 3 minutes na lang din po siya kasi yung preparation and also yung hinahabot namin na stamina ng kids, mahihirapan din talaga kami ipalit.
The cheer dance competition will take center stage this Sunday, 4 p.m. at the Mall of Asia Arena. And in Vietnam, all 9 Pinoy boxers in the Southeast Asian Games are assured of at least a bronze medal after qualifying for the semifinals. The team is up for 5 semis matches tonight, facing Thailand, Indonesia, and Vietnam. 4 other boxers vie for a finals ticket tomorrow, including Olympic silver medalist Nesty Petesio. In bowling, Merwin Tan bags his second gold after topping the men's team of 4 event with Christian Di Chanco, Ivan Dominic Malig, and Patrick Neil Nuki. It was both a gold and silver medal finish for wushu athlete Agatha Wong this year. Agatha told CNN Philippine Sports Desk that she set low expectations for the Vietnam event since she trained less amid the pandemic. The Philippines has dropped to 5th place in the rankings after host Vietnam, Thailand, Indonesia, and Singapore. The country's medal tally is at 163. 39 of those are gold. In entertainment, it is official. Taylor Swift now has the title Doctor. New York University gave Swift an honorary doctorate in fine arts today. The multi-awarded singer also delivered remarks to the graduating class with words on getting through hardships, especially amid the pandemic.
I imagine the idea of a normal college experience was all you wanted too. But in this case, you and I both learned that you don't always get all the things in the bag that you selected from the menu in the delivery service that is life. You get what you get. And as I would like to say to you wholeheartedly, you should be very proud of what you've done with it. Today, you leave New York University and then go out into the world searching what's next. And so will I.
Vice President Leni Robredo's youngest daughter, Jillian, who also graduated and who is also a Swiftie, gushed over Taylor's appearance. Jillian graduated with a double degree in mathematics and economics. Robredo's family, or her mother and sisters, were at the ceremony. And that is it for now. Join me again on News.ph at 7 p.m. I'm Pia Ontiveros for Newsnight, where we go above and beyond the headlines.
This program is brought to you by
Kini ang simbianan sa RPN Radio Philippines Network DXKS DXKS 1080 ang inyong Radio Ronda 5,000 watts nagsimbiya sa ikatulong andana sa UEPCO Lim Building, Borromeo Street, Dakbayan sa Surigao. RPN Radio Philippines Network DXKS 1080 ang inyong Radio Ronda.
is also a classic case of political gaslighting. No? It was such a horrible sight to see a table of men publicly attacking a lady. No? And, it's really bad optics for them. No? And it sounded horrible.
Welcome back to Politics as Usual. I'm Pia Ontiveros. Still with me here in the studio, Gilbert Lewenco and Richard Hederian, and via Zoom, Buddy Zamora and Barry Gutierrez. Gilbert Lewenco, your campaign is claiming if Isko withdraws, then his votes would most likely go to BBM. Talk to us about those numbers and that study that you did, yung mga second preference. Kung
Yes,
sabi.
we had a study prior, few weeks before, months before, studying about the aspect of withdrawal. But it was not supposed to be public. But we made the study if ex-candidate withdrew, where would the votes go? And we found that if we withdrew, majority of our votes will go to BBM.
Mhm.
And
Majority meaning what percent?
around 80%.
80.
80.
Okay.
That will
This was when? How many months ago?
we did it a few months ago, I think then a few weeks ago, around 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
And
Pareho
then,
pa rin?
Pareho pa
80%?
rin. Around 80% of us will go, or of our voters will go to BBM.
Okay.
And if we withdrew, the margin between number one and whoever was number two would actually increase.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But if
Lenny withdrew,
the majority of our votes will of course go to either ours or the other candidates, but never to BBM.
Other candidates meaning Ping, Manny.
Ping, Manny, and us, majority.
Did you have the division for that? Like which percentage goes to?
What we had was majority would go to us, around I think 30% at that time, before this, of course.
Yeah.
And then, but the important aspect was whoever was number two, the lead between the number one contender would go down to 16.
Mhm.
So I think this percolated within the mind of our candidate also that
16 kung si Isko ang number 2.
Yes.
And kung si Lenny?
If Lenny withdrew,
Yeah.
whoever's number two, presumably us, would have just had 16%
Okay.
behind the number one.
Oo.
But if we withdrew, our votes would go to BBM and it would round be 37% between 1 and 2.
Oh. Tapusin mo. So, if Lenny withdrew, if Isko, you check, no? If
Yeah.
it was Manny who withdrew, if it was Ping. So,
No, it's just the two of us.
Yun lang ang pinag-aralan
with due respect
mo.
to the other candidates.
Sus Mariosep, akala ko lahat.
Yeah.
O bakit Lenny and Ping? Lenny and...
Because at that time we said, this is a three-way fight. We agreed with Mr. Hadrian. So we scenarioed that game based on the premise that it was a three-way fight. If one withdrew, where would the votes go? If one withdrew, who would benefit? So we gamed it, we scenarioed it, and that was what the study came about.
Yeah.
But it was supposed to be just between us for possible campaign
And
strategy.
so, yung mga BBM voters, second preference nila is Isko.
Yes.
Isko voters, sinong preference? Sorry, sino ang second preference?
Their second preference would go from us. It would go to BBM. If Isko withdrew, their second choice mostly would go to BBM.
Okay, and that was, like you said, true a few months ago and then true
it was reinforced
2
couple
weeks
of
ago.
weeks ago. Yes.
Okay, and that's, eto ba yung sinasabi mong dun sa Facebook post mo na there were events, quote, there were events which transpired behind the scenes which caused the statement and reactions.
Ano?
This one, or the increased calls for him to
increased
withdraw?
calls for the withdrawal for Isko. Coming from his background, when you tell him to mabitabi ka, in his mind, in his heart, it was very offensive. Yun na naramdaman, ang dating sa kanya parang mabigat. It was very hard for him. So, it was a reaction na, ba't mo ako pinag-withdraw? Ikaw mag-withdraw.
Okay.
And then, based of course on what we discussed on the numbers, it had a quantitative background for that kind of discussion. But we admit, it was not really part of the script at that particular point.
Yeah,
It came about when the question and answer.
Okay, and this was about the numbers, not because babae ang isang kandidato.
No.
Hindi.
With due respect, that was never an issue with our candidate. If Senator Marcos was the one who asked him to withdraw, he would have been saying the same thing. He doesn't really factor that in, although it does come out probably optics-wise. But that was never really a factor with him when his decision came out.
And ito yung basis ng pagkasabi, yung basketball analogy ni Isko na pwede bang magpasab na lang kasi baka kami maka 3-point shot kami.
That was at the back of his mind, I would presume.
Richard, you want?
Yeah, I mean, actually, I'm looking at the numbers now. I mean, more than half of Isko's numbers could go to BBM if he withdraws. But Lenny could only benefit around like 20% or something like that. So a withdrawal of Isko will not significantly help the Robredo camp. It will more help the BBM camp. That is why I don't understand some folks are calling for Isko to withdraw if their purpose is to defeat the front runner, right? I think the better Isko does in this race, it's better for the opposition, it's better for the race to make it more competitive, among other things. So yun ang tinitingnan ko. But at the end of the day, you don't, I mean, it's like beauty queen pageant, right? No one remembers the first runner-up, you know?
Exactly.
And the reality is that both Lenny and BBM, by far, have far more converted to first preference. And if you look at some of the others, I think Publicus Asia, among others, they're showing that the elasticity in voter preference is also diminishing significantly. So, for instance, it looks like in the Robredo and BBM camp, up to 70% are saying they're not going to change their mind. Again, I'm not taking each survey as on face value. I think we have to triangulate them. But I think there's this perception in the Isko camp is that they have so much room for improvement, while the Lenny camp is hitting a ceiling. I'm not sure about that, because if you look at the Pulse Asia survey, it looks at more than 10 points that Lenny can improve further from her 24 points. So she can still go up to 30 points or more. And by the way, I'm not very sure about whether it's very clear to the, when you ask a person in the survey, sinong clearly number 2, number 3 preference, I think it's much more fluid than that. As I've been arguing, I think there are a lot of folks among Generation Z who are not very invested in different camps. There are folks in Mindanao who are not very happy Sara didn't run. I think they're much softer than many people assume. So for me to dismiss that Lenny is hitting her ceiling is a little bit premature, while at the same time I understand where the Isko camp is coming, because they're looking at how much potential they may have, because their ceiling might be also very high.
Yeah. Remember a few weeks back, Richard, you were here on the show when we talked about itong unity, no? Because nga, ang iniisip nila lahat is, and maybe we wrongly thought, no? Na parang, how do you defeat the number 1, BBM? Because he's so way ahead, and then, you know, ang daming daw natatakot sa isang Marcos Jr. presidency, di ba? So, of course, to do that, you need to, well, unite. Para bang sana one-on-one na lang yung labanan, di ba?
But this
now you're saying
negotiation
is
should have
no,
been
it's
done
not
a
gonna
year
happen.
ago, right?
Yeah.
And that was the point. And what's happening now is each candidate is giving a different version of what went wrong. Isko has his own version. I mean, I know what this version is. Sarah Lacson even responded to one of my tweets, arguing against that version. The Lenny camp, I'm sure Barry has his own version.
Yeah.
For me, we're the adults in the room. I'm sorry to say it, because this is not how adults handle politics, just to be honest about it. I know I'm the youngest guy in this panel, but I just have to say it. I just have to say, I'm not very impressed with the level of maturity I'm saying here. Everyone is like passing the buck.
And I remember what you said a few weeks back, again, when you were on the show, di ba? You were saying, dapat natapos to ng March. No, ano ba tayo ngayon? April. April, ano tayo ngayon?
Kaya nga sabi ko, diminishing elasticity in voter preference, that's a very important factor. I think it was 45 to 50% last month. Now it's down to 30% who may change their mind, based on some of the surveys. Again, I think it's perhaps more than that. But I'm looking at the numbers, it's not looking very encouraging. I think we're past the point on that,
Yeah, way past the point. No? So we're looking at President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. We're going to have to take a quick break. More insights from our guests. Talaga. May pag-asa pa raw. When we return, this is Politics as Usual. Stay with us.
SMC, San Miguel Corporation. Bisag unsang industriya ang sudlan niini, tinguha sa SMC ang pag-uswag o paglambo sa mga Pilipino. Karon, gikan sa SMC, aniya na ang SMC Davao Cement. SMC Davao Cement. Gama sa Davao, para sa Mindanao. SMC Davao Cement. Ato ni Bay.
Protektahi ang imong mga mata batok sa delikado ug makadaot nga ultraviolet nga silaw sa adlaw ug uban pa. Pinaagi sa pagsulob og eksakto nga prescription sa antiojos o antipara. Likay ang mga simptomas sama sa hanap nga pananaw sa layo o duol nga basahon, sakit sa ulo ug uban pa nga makaapekto sa atong kahimsog nga ang hinungdan depekto sa atong mga mata. Alang sa kumpleto nga primary eye care, contact lenses, fashion eyewear, computer eyeglasses, sunglasses, accessories ug uban pa, adto kita sa AG Buñuel Optical Clinic. Ang AG Buñuel Optical Clinic nagpahinumdum kanato ngang kahimsog sa atong mga mata usa ka prioridad nga angay ipa-check up kausa matag tuig aron pagsiguro nga luwas kita sa piligrong mga sakit. Pinaagi sa lisensyado o qualified optometrists nga maoy mo prescribe sa eksaktong kagamitan o kung primary eye care ang paghisgutan. Duaw lang silang buhatan sa 3636 sa Nicolas Street, Surigao City ug adunay ilang extension office sa Aurelianida Street, Cantilan, Surigao del Sur. Ayaw kalimti higala. AG Buniel Optical Clinic.
Ang AG Buniel Optical Clinic doon na branch dito sa lungsod sa Dapa sa may Lupis Haina Street, Poblasyon Dapa, Surigao del Norte.
Ang AG Buniel Optical Clinic dinhi sa syudad ng Surigao no transfer na sa bag-ong location sa Nicolas Street, Ragyahapon, tapad sa Garcia Hotel at bang sa Unicity. Ang Riverside Parts Master Incorporated na sa ilang bagong location sa Dalan, Burgos, ning atong syudad. Mahimo niyong tawagan sa telephone number 231-7478 or 826-3663. Mga produkto nga inyong mapalit, genuine, Makita Power Tools sama sa planer, drill, grinder, Triton paints, construction supplies, angle bars, flat bars, GI pipes, automotive spare parts, Firefly electrical devices sama sa switches, bulbs ug outlets. Adto ang Riverside Parts Master Incorporated sa ilang bagong pwesto sa Dalan, Burgos ning syudad. Makahangyo ka o makabarato pagyod diha sa Riverside Parts Master Incorporated.
Sipon plus baradong ilong na may kasamang pananakit ng ulo? Pre, ba't ka nagtitiis? Kung meron namang Kalabo Premium Rub, Kalabo Premium Rub, isang pahid lang, nanunuot ang sarap sa pakiramdam sa ulo, ilong at sarap sa may ginhawa. Tandaan, basta sipon na may kasamang sakit ng ulo at baradong ilong, magpahid lang ng Kalabo Premium Rub. Mabisa, kaya sigurado. Gawa ng Jesser Marketing. Mabibili na ngayon sa mga butiga. Ang kapinghot sa ilong nga imong giantos, hasol kaayo kini, hilabi na kung apilan ng pagsipon nga lisod tang tangon. Sulay higala ang gahom sa Kalabo Premium Rub. Ipahid palibot sa imong ilong. Aron ang gahom sa Kalabo Extract inubanan sa malunggay and virgin coconut oil manuhot-suhot kini. Kalabo Premium Rub, ang sulbad sa pinghot nga ilong. Kalabo Premium Rub is a quality product of Jesser Marketing.
RPN Radio Philippines Network, Radyo Ronda DXKS Surigao, member kapisanan ng mga broadcaster ng Pilipinas.
It's a big challenge, and had they decided to unite and support a single candidate, it would still be challenging, but it would be attainable. No? But at this point, the challenge for the Robredo camp is really just to continue, because looking at the Okta research results and the Pulse Asia survey results, the momentum is on their side, but time is of the essence.
Welcome back to Politics as usual. I'm Pia Ontiveros. Nag-iisip tuloy ako dun sa title ng episode natin. Siguro dapat tanggalin na natin yung question mark, no? But let's check first in with Barry Gutierrez. Again, spokesman for the Leni Robredo campaign. Barry.
Yes.
Yeah, well, Richard and Gilbert had already said a mouthful, so I'm sure you want to jump right in and respond. Go right ahead.
Well, first, I feel compelled to agree with Richard because I don't want to be confused with one of the non-adults in the room. But I think that I agree with what July said in the last segment. It's our strategy really at this point is just to continue on. The recent surveys have been very encouraging. Her numbers are continuing to go up. And one thing I think that we have to factor in is the unprecedented level of support coming from volunteers and ordinary people, I think, is something new to elections. I have personally never seen this level of volunteer engagement in any other national campaign that I have been part of or that I have observed. And I think that going into the last 20 days, that's really going to be the key to pulling out a last-minute victory here in this election.
Volunteer engagement needs to be reflected in the votes, right? Is that what's going to happen, or are we going to see a President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. or and a President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. and the first runner-up who is going to be VP Leni? Is that what we're going to see?
I'm sorry, Pia, you're breaking up. Your audio is kind of choppy.
Okay. Are we going to see a President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. and a first runner-up, Lenny Robredo. Because because volunteer engagement, increased volunteer engagement, and no matter how wonderful and nice and cute your rallies are, but if those are not translated into votes, then that's nothing.
Well, we think that's precisely what I was saying. We think they will translate into votes. We think that the house-to-house campaign, the efforts being done by volunteers at the grassroots level within their own networks, on election day, that will translate into votes. So we don't. I don't agree that 3 weeks away from the election, we're already going to call it. I think that a lot can still happen. I think that the momentum is ours, and we are still going to win this come election day.
Doesn't it worry you that, according to the studies that the Isko Moreno campaign came up with, na ang second preference is 80% of Isko votes, if he were to withdraw, would go to BBM. Isn't that worrisome for you?
Well, first of all, if you look at different surveys, they will tell you different things about second preference insofar as voters are concerned. That's the first point. The second point is, and here I agree with Richard completely, it's sort of an abstract question. If you ask a voter, who will be your second choice? I don't think people have actually, contemplated and thought the answer to that as thoroughly as they actually decide on the first choice for candidates. So I think that it's more fluid than the numbers would lead us to believe, and that there is still a lot of room for conversion. Besides, just going by the trends in recent surveys, it is VP Lenny who has gained the most out of any of the candidates, which is proof positive that people are in fact shifting to her, at least in the last few weeks of this campaign.
Buddy Zamora, Sir Buddy, a campaign spokesperson, campaign manager for Senator Manny Pacquiao. What are your thoughts on this?
How's that again?
What are your thoughts on this, sir?
Well, all of this are speculation, no? We're just about 19 days from election day. There's no need to speculate. Let's just wait for the results of the ultimate survey on May 9. Because all of these are just, all assumptions. Let's just wait. It's near enough. No need to speculate on who will be one or two. We will know soon enough. For our part, we will just continue doing what we have been doing, relying on our grassroots campaign, also on our Libreng Pabahay program, and also we're relying on our religious sector group support to carry us through to election day.
We're going to have to take another and final quick break. This is Politics as Usual. Stay tuned.
SMC, San Miguel Corporation. Bisag unsang industriya ang sudlan niini, tinguha sa SMC ang pag-uswag o paglambo sa mga Pilipino. Karon, gikan sa SMC, aniya na ang SMC Davao Cement. SMC Davao Cement, gama sa Davao para sa Mindanao. SMC Davao Cement, ato ni Bay.
Maayong balita sa tanan sa atong panginahanglan sa panimalay, mga gamit, ingon man mga dekorasyon, pwede na natong mapalit diha sa Wellington Bazaar. Anausab sa Wellington Bazaar ang mga bestidahon, karsunison, plain t-shirt, plastic chair, floor mat, mantel, banig, folding bed, habol, mosketero, trapal, lideret, basketball, stuffed toys ug mga dulaan sa bata. Ang Wellington Bazaar ana magalagad kanato sa Dalan Kaimo ning Dakbayan sa Surigao. Wellington Bazaar, gikan sa mga kawani og tigdumala sa Wellington Bazaar. Mayong adlaw alang kaninyo. Wellington Bazaar, sukion ta sa kanunay.
Ay, kasakit yun sa ako ang mga mata. Uy, labad pagyud kay ako ang ulo. Murag kog malipong ba? Unya, murag limtanon pagyud ko. Unsaon man ni uy?
Naa na gyud kay problema, miss. Ha? Tanawa gud nagsakay ka sa tricycle, wala kay suot bra. Para masolba na imo problema, ha? Pag inom man ni Lutein Plus.
Unsa? Lutein Plus? Asa man na nimo gikan?
Ako man ninadunggan sa radyo, miss. Mao nga kapalit ko naan pagpagandam ba.
Sige, salamat kaayo ha. Magpalit dayon ko og Lutein Plus.
The award-winning supplements from Clean Green, New Zealand Omega Plus ang support sa heart and blood system. Ang Lutein Plus, 13 ka mga ingredients, lakip ng vitamins A and C. Dili lamang kung maradyaw sa itong pananaw, nagsuporta sa bini sa ito intero lawas. Ning panahon nga jari kita kuman sa COVID-19 pandemic, kinahanglan magpabilin kitang himsog inom sa Lutein Plus, Omega Plus, and Primrose Plus of Gel. Inintanan available din sa New Family Drug, Palma Drug, sa Aquarian Pharmacy.
Kalabo with garlic plus lemongrass and turmeric. Maayo kini alang sa mga naganto sa high blood. Kung perming kasakit ang imong tangkugo, kung masobraan ka og kaon sa mga lami ang pagkaon, basig ning tukar na ang imong high blood. Pagtumar higala og kalabo with garlic plus lemongrass and turmeric. Usa ka capsule bago mo gaon aron siguradong protektado kang kanunay. Kalabo with garlic plus lemongrass and turmeric. Masaligan og siguradong epektibo batok sa high blood. Kalabo with garlic plus lemongrass and turmeric. Kalabo with garlic plus lemongrass and turmeric is a quality product of Jester Marketing.
RPN Radio Philippines Network. Radyo Ronda DXKS Surigao. Member, kapisanan ng mga broadcaster ng Pilipinas.
That is pure speculation, no? Because even if they win, there will always be that possibility of political instability.
We are on our final stretch. This is Politics as Usual. Kausapin natin muna si Barry Gutierrez. Let's talk about that, Barry. Itong instability, yellow turned pink forces, sa inyo daw manggagaling just in case Marcos wins the presidency. Can you speak to that?
Well, first of all, the fact that it was raised at all in that press conference, I think, was highly irresponsible. They were responding to a supposed quote that was completely fabricated, completely false, something that the vice president never said. Yeah. Like all the other candidates, we are committed to having a orderly, honest, clean elections. That hopefully the results will be clear and uncontested. That's why we are monitoring all these all the news that has come out recently regarding supposed problems with the data breach of Smartmatic. But rest assured, if there's going to be trouble here, it's not going to come from our camp. And to suggest otherwise is, I think, the height of irresponsibility.
So no, if let's say the elections are clean and honest, etc., orderly, and if Marcos Jr., if it is a President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. At the end, you're not going to make trouble after that. You're not going to make it difficult for the next administration.
Well, let's be clear. That's a very, very hypothetical circumstance because we feel that VP Lenny will emerge the winner in the end. But if, in case she isn't, and so long as the elections are credible, they are honest, then clearly we won't be the ones to start anything here. I think that we should all be united as a people, and all the camps should actually be saying the same thing, that we should respect the results of the election because that's how democracy works. Sometimes the person who gets elected is not the person you want, but we just have to respect that and expect that that person will become a president for everyone.
Richard?
Yeah, I mean, for me, one of the strange things
that I'm not very comfortable with is these accusations that the opposition could be involved in kind of rigging the elections and all, which is completely preposterous because it's the current administration, right,
Yeah.
which is handling it, not the opposition. So if there's anyone who should be concerned, it's probably the other side. I'm not saying there's a problem. I'm just saying if there's going to be concern, logically it should come from that side. The other thing that is making me very uncomfortable about this race is that, unlike the previous elections, we don't have the two authoritative survey agencies regularly coming out. So remember, in the previous elections, you had SWS and Pulse Asia. They had media sponsorship. Every other week or so, you would see results. It's easy for people to track it. They correctly predicted Vice President Leni Robredo's victory in the Pulse Asia survey in 2016, among other things. Now it's not as regular. There's a delay time. There are other new players coming in. We're not very sure about the
Baka
institution.
pandemic factor din, ano?
There are many factors, but
Yeah.
I'm saying, so the pandemic is also making it more difficult.
Yeah.
But at the same time, what I'm not also comfortable with it is this kind of aura of inevitability. We see some people are saying, it's just a matter of time, and labanan dito is for the second place and all of that. First of all, it just defeats the whole purpose of an election, right? And more than that, it creates this kind of expectation that if anything outside that happens, then automatically something went wrong, right? And I don't think that's very helpful for democracy. I'm very, very worried about that. At the same time, we have other camps who are on this total mode of, no, all the surveys are just a sham. We have our own surveys and all.
Yeah.
So this
Because
is where...
every last one of them is saying that
So
sila
this is my
mananalo
worry.
eh.
If we have no base, right? If we have no base, if we're all going to be post-truth or our own truth and all, it's going to be much more difficult for us to accept the ultimate result of this. And let's be honest, where ISCO's strength is that in terms of net trust rating, I think he does better than most other candidates because it's closest to the median voter. While if you look at Bongbong Marcos and Leni, they're both polarizing. So whichever wins, maybe one has more support than the other, they're quite polarizing, at least to a significant plurality.
Yeah.
So
well, ito rin yung sinasabi
and
ni
this
Isko,
is the
di ba?
concern. So
Oo,
that's where I see where the ISCO argument is coming. You vote me. Yes, there's some people who don't like what I say, magaspang ako. But the median voter, the 60%, let's call it, are going to be okay with me.
Yeah.
I'm
Yung
not
ayaw
as
kay Marcos,
polarizing
yung
as the others.
yung ayaw sa
Especially
Pinklawan,
before
oo.
press conference,
Yeah.
I think he was not as polarizing. That is what I'm
Especially
saying.
before the press
Yes, I
conference. So
think
now
that-
he is polarizing.
I don't know, but it's
let's
not
see,
helpful.
no?
I'm just saying it's not helpful
Yeah.
to him, and I think also to the race. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, you know, a few weeks ago nga, when you were here, di ba, ang pinag-uusapan natin, dapat kasi may runoff elections. Ang hirap ng ganito, 10 kandidato mo. But anyway, okay. Final words, very quickly, we'll start with Sir Buddy Zamora. Sir?
Yes. I'll make a fearless prediction that the elections will go ahead in May 9 without anybody backing out from the race. So there are 10 candidates we have for president. All will remain running until the very end. That's my fearless prediction. And what we're hoping for is we will be the dark horse to perhaps win over the perceived number 1 and number 2.
Well, yeah, everyone else is saying they'll be the dark horse. Thank you so much, Sir Buddy Zamora. Let's go to Barry Gutierrez. Final words, Barry.
Well, I agree with Richard. It's too early to call it. The latest pulse survey actually was conducted in March, so it's almost a month out of date. And with 20 days left, I think that clearly the momentum is ours, and the surveys actually indicate that her numbers are on the upswing. So we think that we're in a good position here, and that on election day we will be able to pull up, well, maybe a surprise to some, but definitely to us something that was well within reach all along.
O yun, lahat mananalo. Gilbert Lowenko.
Well, of course, all campaign managers will never admit that they're losing. It's a given that, but we believe so that we still have a chance at it. And like Richard said, we're aiming for a particular niche, the one that don't like either. And we feel that there is still a large majority.
And the ones who feel caught in between.
Because, our voters are normally silent.
Yeah.
So we're banking on that, and we still feel we have a chance to win. But all of us, in our campaign, the symbol we wear on our shirt is not a decoration. It's called God first. So we all believe that, we are where we're supposed to be, and whatever will happen, that's what God wants. So it's not a decoration. We firmly believe in that. But we're going to fight it out till the end, no matter what. And my candidate's out there slugging it out. I mean, he's the most active of all candidates. He is focused and relentless in terms of campaigning. So we're banking on that. And, and as Mr. Barry said, we know whatever happens, as long as it's a credible election, we will respect the mandate of the people.
Richard?
Well, I talk too much. I think I made a lot of enemies. I'm just gonna keep it very short. All I'm gonna say is this: I believe this is the most important elections in the past half a century as far as the Philippines is concerned. Whoever becomes the next president, they're either gonna pick up where Duterte left, or they're gonna reverse where Duterte has gone wrong, right? Or right, depending on how we wanna see it. Kaya the stakes are extremely high. So I hope voters out there, they're not looking at this like a horse race lang. I know we make it look like that, but my God, the next generation will pay the price if we get this wrong.
Thank you so much to our guests tonight. Mr. Buddy Zamora, campaign manager for Senator Manny Pacquiao, Attorney Barry Gutierrez, spokesperson for VP Lenny Robredo's campaign, Gilbert Lawenco of the Isko Moreno campaign, and Richard Heydarian, regular analyst on the show. Co-anchor na, na-promote ka na. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for being with us tonight. We've been told before, don't talk politics at the dinner table or the family reunion or in Viber groups and risk digital warfare, but we can talk about it here at this table on this show. Your weekly political appointment fix, politics as usual. I'm Pia Ontiveros. See you back here next Tuesday, 8 p.m.